Standing in that courthouse hallway, clutching my manila envelope with trembling fingers, I watched Derek stride through those doors, wearing his expensive Navy suit with his new wife clinging to his arm. 10 years melted away in an instant. I was back on my doorstep during that thunderstorm, picking up screaming baby Emma, while Derek's car taillights disappeared into the darkness forever. His crumpled note still burned in my memory. "She's your burden now. Sarah's dead. I'm done." Now here he stood, demanding his daughter back through lawyers and legal papers. I whispered to myself as his attorney approached, "You have no idea what's in this envelope, Derek." 10 years ago, my world collapsed in ways I never imagined possible. My daughter Sarah lay dying in that sterile hospital room, her once vibrant auburn hair now thin and brittle from chemotherapy. At 60 years old, I'd spent every day for 8 months shuttling between the hospital and home, caring for both my dying daughter and her 6-month-old baby Emma. Derek's absence during those final weeks spoke volumes. While I held Sarah's hand through endless rounds of treatment, he claimed work emergencies and stress kept him away. The smell of alcohol on his breath when he occasionally appeared told a different story. His construction business demanded attention, he insisted, though I noticed his phone constantly buzzing with messages he'd quickly silence. The night Sarah passed, I'd been sleeping in the chair beside her bed, while Derek was nowhere to be found. Her last words were about Emma. "Promise me you'll protect her, Mom. Promise me she'll know love." I squeezed her hand and gave my word, never imagining how soon I'd need to keep that promise. Sarah's funeral became my responsibility alone. Derek disappeared completely, leaving me to arrange flowers, select readings, and comfort grieving relatives. I held baby Emma throughout the service, her tiny fist clutching my black dress while mourners offered condolences. Several people asked about Derek's whereabouts. I made excuses, protecting his reputation even then. 3 days later, during the worst thunderstorm our town had seen in years, my doorbell rang at 11:30 at night. Through the peephole, I saw Derek's retreating figure racing toward his truck. On my doorstep sat Emma's car seat, the baby inside screaming and soaked from rain. A crumpled piece of notebook paper was tucked beneath the carrier handle. My hand shook as I read his scrawled message. "She's your burden now. Sarah's dead. I'm done. Don't try to find me." Emma's diaper was soiled, her tiny body burning with fever from exposure to the cold rain. I rushed her inside, my heart breaking as I realized this innocent child had been abandoned by the one person who should have protected her. While warming a bottle with hands that wouldn't stop trembling, I called Derek's phone repeatedly. Each call went straight to voicemail until finally a recorded message announced the number was no longer in service. The pediatrician confirmed Emma had developed a respiratory infection from being left outside in the storm. Dr. Martinez's kind eyes filled with concern as he examined the baby's condition. "Where's the father?" he asked gently. I couldn't find words to explain that Derek had vanished completely, leaving no forwarding address or contact information. Those first weeks tested every ounce of strength I possessed. At 60, I hadn't cared for an infant in 35 years. My arthritic hands fumbled with diaper changes while Emma cried inconsolably through sleepless nights. I reread parenting books I'd stored in the attic, desperately trying to remember techniques that once came naturally. My neighbor Linda from next door appeared with casseroles and baby supplies. "That man's a coward," she declared, referring to Derek's disappearance. Patricia, from across the street, organized a support network of retired women who took turns helping with Emma during my most exhausted moments. Their kindness sustained me when grief and responsibility threatened to overwhelm my resolve. Weeks turned to months while I established routines around Emma's needs. My fixed retirement income barely covered baby formula and diapers, forcing me to take a part-time position at the local library. Emma would sit contentedly in her carrier behind the checkout desk, while I processed returns and helped patrons find books. As Emma grew stronger and healthier, her personality began emerging. She had Sarah's bright blue eyes and determined chin, but her smile was entirely her own. When she took her first steps across my living room floor, reaching toward me with chubby arms, my heart filled with a love I'd forgotten was possible. The climactic twist came 6 months after Derek's abandonment. While organizing Sarah's remaining paperwork, I discovered Derek had cleaned out her savings account and cashed her life insurance policy the week before she died. $25,000 that should have secured Emma's future had vanished along with her father. He'd planned this abandonment while his wife lay dying, calculating his escape with cold precision. Sitting in Sarah's empty bedroom, holding the bank statements that proved Derek's betrayal, I made a sacred vow. Emma would never know the poverty or abandonment her father intended. I would give her the love and stability she deserved, no matter what sacrifices were required. Learning to parent at 60 proved more challenging than I'd anticipated, but Emma's resilience inspired my determination. Those early months required constant adaptation as I navigated unfamiliar territory. Middle-of-the-night feedings left me exhausted, but Emma's trusting gaze made every sleepless hour worthwhile. The local library became our second home when Emma was old enough for story time. I'd watch her interact with other children, noting her natural curiosity and gentle nature. Librarian Mrs. Thompson often remarked on Emma's advanced vocabulary and love for picture books. "She's special, Anne-Marie," she'd say, while Emma carefully turned pages with tiny fingers. Financial challenges required creative solutions. My modest Social Security checks barely covered our basic expenses, so I gradually sold Sarah's jewelry and furniture to supplement our income. Each decision felt like losing another piece of my daughter, but Emma's needs took priority over my sentimental attachments. Preschool enrollment marked a significant milestone. Emma's teacher, Miss Rodriguez, immediately recognized her artistic abilities. The refrigerator became a gallery displaying Emma's colorful drawings of flowers, animals, and our little house. Her talent reminded me so much of Sarah, who'd shown similar creativity at that age. Birthday celebrations required special planning on our tight budget. Emma's third birthday party featured a homemade chocolate cake and decorations crafted from construction paper. She invited 2 little friends from preschool, and we played simple games in our backyard. Her delighted laughter, as she opened modest presents, convinced me that love mattered more than expensive gifts. Parent-teacher conferences consistently brought positive reports. Emma excelled academically, while displaying remarkable emotional maturity for her age. When other children mentioned their fathers, she'd simply explain that she lived with her grandmother, who took excellent care of her. Her teachers praised the stability and security evident in her confident demeanor. Summer camping trips became our annual tradition. We'd drive to state parks where Emma could explore nature trails and identify different bird species. She'd collect smooth stones and interesting leaves, creating elaborate stories about forest creatures. These adventures strengthened our bond while providing inexpensive entertainment that enriched her childhood experiences. Christmas mornings held particular magic in our household. I'd save throughout the year to provide Emma with special gifts, often handmade items that showed personal attention. She treasured the quilted doll clothes I'd sewn, and the wooden toy chest her grandfather had built decades earlier. Our modest tree sparkled with ornaments Emma created in school, each one representing another year of our growing relationship. When Emma asked about her daddy, I chose honesty appropriate for her age level. "Your mommy loved you very much, but she got sick and went to heaven," I'd explain. "Daddy had to go away, but you have me, and I'll always take care of you." She'd nod solemnly and return to her activities, apparently satisfied with this explanation. Elementary school brought new challenges and achievements. Emma's report cards consistently showed excellent grades and positive behavior ratings. Her artwork adorned classroom walls, and she participated enthusiastically in school programs. Other parents often complimented her manners and kindness toward classmates. Our mother-daughter relationship deepened as Emma matured. She'd help me cook dinner, standing on a step stool to reach the counter while we prepared simple meals together. We'd discuss her school day, her friendships, and her dreams for the future. These conversations revealed her thoughtful nature and growing understanding of the world around her. The routine of our peaceful life felt complete and fulfilling. Emma had become the center of my universe, bringing purpose and joy to my retirement years. She called me Mama naturally, and I embraced the role completely. We attended church together, worked in our small garden, and spent quiet evenings reading books from the library. But our tranquil existence was about to be shattered. One afternoon, while Emma played in our backyard, a man in a dark suit approached our front door. He introduced himself as a private investigator hired by Derek Williamson to locate his daughter. My blood ran cold as he explained that Derek had contacted his agency 5 years earlier, requesting information about Emma's whereabouts. Why didn't he follow through? I asked, my voice barely steady. The investigator shifted uncomfortably. That's something you'll need to discuss with Mr. Williamson directly. He's recently renewed his interest in establishing contact with his daughter. The implications sent chills down my spine. Derek had been watching from a distance all these years, aware of our location, but choosing to remain absent. Now something had changed, and I sensed our peaceful world was about to be destroyed by the man who'd abandoned us when we needed him most. The knock on my front door came on a Tuesday morning while Emma was at school. Through the peephole, I saw a tall man in an expensive charcoal suit, his dark hair perfectly styled and his posture radiating confidence. It took me several seconds to recognize Derek beneath the polished exterior. 10 years had transformed the scruffy construction worker into someone who looked like he belonged in corporate boardrooms. His face had filled out, his clothes screamed money, and a gold watch gleamed on his wrist. The man who'd abandoned his sick wife and infant daughter now stood on my porch looking like a successful businessman. "Hello, Anne-Marie," he said when I reluctantly opened the door. His voice carried a practiced smoothness that hadn't existed during his marriage to Sarah. "I think it's time we talked about Emma." My hands gripped the doorframe to steady myself. "You lost the right to talk about Emma when you left her on my doorstep 10 years ago." Derek's smile never wavered, but his eyes hardened slightly. "People change, Anne-Marie. I've worked hard to become the man Emma deserves as a father. I'm here to make things right." Behind him, a sleek black Mercedes sedan idled in my driveway. Through the passenger window, I glimpsed a blonde woman watching our exchange with calculating eyes. This had to be the new wife the private investigator had mentioned during his visit. "Emma doesn't know you," I said firmly. "She's built a life here with me. She's happy and secure." "She's my daughter," Derek replied, his tone remaining pleasant, but carrying an underlying threat. "I have rights, and I intend to exercise them. I've spoken with attorneys who assure me that biological parents have priority in custody matters." The woman from the car approached, her designer heels clicking against my concrete walkway. She was younger than Derek, probably in her early 30s, with platinum hair pulled into a severe chignon. Her navy business suit and pearl earrings suggested wealth and professional success. "This is my wife, Amanda," Derek said, placing a possessive hand on her back. "Amanda, meet Emma's grandmother." Amanda's handshake felt cold and brief. Her eyes scanned my modest home with barely concealed disdain. "We've heard so much about Emma," she said with artificial warmth. "We're eager to provide her with the opportunities she deserves." When Emma's school bus rounded the corner, Derek straightened with anticipation. My granddaughter bounded up the sidewalk with her usual enthusiasm, her backpack bouncing and her smile bright. She stopped short when she noticed the strangers standing with me. "Emma," I said carefully, "this is Derek. He's your father." Emma's smile faded as confusion clouded her features. She moved closer to me, instinctively seeking protection from these unexpected visitors. Derek crouched to her eye level, his practiced charm on full display. "Hello, Princess," he said softly. "I know this is confusing, but I'm your daddy. I've been away for a long time, but I'm back now to take care of you." Emma studied his face with the serious expression she wore when processing new information. "Where were you when Mama needed you?" she asked with the blunt honesty of a 10-year-old. Derek's composure flickered briefly. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, sweetheart. But I'm here now, and I want to make up for lost time. Would you like to see the house where you'll be living?" "I live here," Emma replied firmly, moving behind me. "This is my home." Amanda stepped forward with a patronizing smile. "We have a beautiful house with a swimming pool and horses, Emma. You'd have your own room with anything you could want." Emma's grip on my hand tightened. The promises meant nothing to a child who valued security over material possessions. She'd learned early that love and consistency mattered more than expensive things. Derek stood, his frustration carefully controlled. "We'll start with visits," he announced. "I want Emma to spend weekends with us, so we can bond properly. This transition needs to happen gradually for everyone's sake." The next morning, a courier delivered legal papers that made my worst fears reality. Derek had filed for full custody, citing his improved circumstances and my advanced age as factors favoring his case. The petition painted me as an elderly woman unable to provide proper care for a growing child. His attorney, Jonathan Pierce from Pierce, Hammond and Associates, had an impressive reputation in family law. The letterhead alone intimidated me with its prestigious downtown address and list of senior partners. My own legal representation came through the court-appointed counsel program since I couldn't afford private attorneys. Linda Martinez, my public defender, met with me in a cramped office filled with overflowing case files. She was younger than Emma's teacher and looked overwhelmed by her caseload. While reviewing Derek's petition, she sighed deeply. "He's got significant advantages," she admitted. "Steady income, stable marriage, proper housing. The court will consider what's in Emma's best interests. But biological parents usually have preference unless there's evidence of unfitness." The first court-ordered visitation arrived faster than I'd expected. Derek picked up Emma on Saturday morning, promising to return her by 6 that evening. She clung to me at the door, whispering that she didn't want to go with strangers. "It's only for today," I assured her, though my heart was breaking. "You'll be home for dinner." When Derek returned her that evening, Emma was quiet and subdued. She'd spent the day at their mansion, swimming in their pool, and touring her potential bedroom. Derek had showered her with expensive toys and promises of private tutoring, dance lessons, and exotic vacations. "Did you have fun?" I asked while helping her into pajamas. Emma shrugged. "Their house is big and fancy, but it doesn't feel like home. Amanda keeps telling me how much better my life will be with them." The manipulation had begun immediately. Derek was using material promises to win Emma's affection, while undermining her attachment to me. His tactics felt calculated and cold, designed to convince a child that luxury equaled love. The climactic twist came when I was cleaning out old file cabinets, searching for documents Linda needed for our case. Hidden behind Sarah's medical records, I found a marriage certificate that made my blood run cold. Derek had married Amanda 6 months after Sarah's death, which meant he'd been planning his new life while his dying wife fought for every breath in that hospital room. The dates proved Derek's abandonment hadn't been an impulsive decision born from grief. He'd calculated his escape, secured his future with a wealthy woman, and discarded Emma when she no longer served his purposes. Now that he needed respectability for some reason, he was back to claim the daughter he'd thrown away like garbage. Sitting in my kitchen with that marriage certificate in my trembling hands, I realized this battle was just beginning. Derek's return wasn't motivated by paternal love or guilt over his abandonment. He wanted Emma for reasons that had nothing to do with her well-being, and I intended to discover exactly what those reasons were. The custody proceedings began 3 weeks later, in Judge Catherine Morrison's courtroom. Derek arrived with his expensive legal team, their polished shoes clicking across the marble floors as they wheeled in boxes of documentation. I sat beside Linda, feeling underdressed in my best Sunday outfit, while Derek's lawyers spread their papers across mahogany tables. Derek's opening statement painted a picture of redemption and paternal devotion. Jonathan Pierce stood before the judge with practiced confidence, describing his client's transformation from a grieving widower to a successful businessman, ready to provide his daughter with every advantage. "Your Honor, Mr. Williamson has spent the past decade building a stable life. He owns a thriving construction company, maintains a beautiful home in Preston Hills, and has married a respected pharmaceutical executive. He can offer Emma private education, cultural enrichment, and financial security that, frankly, her elderly grandmother cannot match." Pierce's words stung because they contained uncomfortable truths. Derek's construction business had indeed flourished, likely funded by Amanda's money. Their mansion in Preston Hills was worth more than my entire neighborhood. Emma could attend the finest private schools and travel the world with their resources. Linda's response focused on Emma's emotional well-being and our established bond. She presented photos of school events, birthday parties, and camping trips, documenting 10 years of loving consistency. but I could see Judge Morrison's expression growing skeptical as she calculated my age against Emma's remaining childhood years. The court ordered a comprehensive evaluation of all parties. Dr. Patricia Hendricks, a child psychologist with 20 years' experience, would interview Emma, Derek, Amanda, and me to assess family dynamics and Emma's best interests. Child Protective Services arrived at my home the following Tuesday. Mrs. Sharon Coleman, a social worker with kind eyes but serious demeanor, spent 3 hours examining every aspect of our living situation. She checked Emma's bedroom, reviewed her school records, and questioned our daily routines. Emma seems well-adjusted and secure, Mrs. Coleman noted, while watching Emma complete homework at the kitchen table. She's clearly thriving academically and emotionally, but she also documented concerns about my age and long-term ability to care for a teenager. At 70, could I handle Emma's high school years, college preparation, and eventual independence? The questions felt reasonable, yet deeply painful. Derek's character witnesses impressed everyone with their testimonials. Business partners praised his professional integrity and community involvement. Amanda's colleagues from Meridian Pharmaceuticals described their stable marriage and beautiful home environment. Dr. James Patterson, Derek's psychiatrist, testified about his patient's remarkable recovery from grief-induced depression. Mr. Williamson has worked extensively to address the trauma of losing his first wife. He's developed healthy coping mechanisms and strong emotional intelligence that will serve him well as a parent. The testimony painted Derek as a man who'd overcome personal tragedy to build a successful new life. His abandonment of Emma was reframed as temporary emotional breakdown, understandable given his circumstances. The narrative carefully avoided mentioning his timing in marrying Amanda or his complete disappearance without contact. Amanda's testimony particularly concerned me. She spoke eloquently about their desire to provide Emma with opportunities I couldn't offer: private tutoring, equestrian lessons, European travel, and preparation for Ivy League universities. Her pharmaceutical salary alone exceeded my entire yearly income. Emma deserves every advantage we can provide, Amanda said with apparent sincerity. We have the resources to ensure her success in whatever field she chooses to pursue. Linda challenged their motives, questioning why Derek had waited 10 years to seek custody. Pierce smoothly deflected these concerns, claiming his client needed time to heal and establish stability before taking on parental responsibilities. Emma's therapy sessions with Dr. Hendricks revealed the emotional complexity of our situation. Emma expressed love for me while acknowledging curiosity about her biological father. She was confused by Derek's sudden appearance and overwhelmed by the promises of material wealth. I don't understand why he left if he loved me, Emma told Dr. Hendricks during one session. Mama says people make mistakes, but 10 years seems like a really long mistake. The psychological evaluation process stretched over 6 weeks. Derek submitted to extensive testing that revealed no obvious mental health issues or personality disorders. His results suggested someone capable of providing stable parenting, despite his past abandonment. My own evaluation raised concerns about age-related challenges. While I showed no signs of cognitive decline or emotional instability, the psychologist questioned whether I possessed sufficient energy for Emma's teenage years. Derek's visitations increased to every weekend plus 1 evening per week. Emma returned from these visits increasingly conflicted. Derek showered her with expensive gifts while carefully criticizing our modest lifestyle. He'd comment on her clothes, our small house, and the limitations of public education. Daddy says I could have anything I want if I lived with him and Amanda, Emma confided after one particularly difficult visit. He says Mama can't give me the life I deserve. The manipulation was working exactly as Derek intended. He was systematically undermining Emma's contentment with our life, while creating artificial desires for luxuries she'd never needed before. His psychological warfare targeted a 10-year-old child who couldn't fully comprehend the adult motivations behind his promises. Medical experts questioned whether a 70-year-old woman could adequately supervise a teenager. Dr. Robert Chen, a geriatrician hired by Derek's team, testified about age-related limitations that could impact my parenting abilities. While Mrs. Patterson shows no current signs of cognitive or physical decline, actuarial tables suggest increasing health challenges over the next decade. Emma will need consistent, energetic supervision during her formative teenage years. My own medical examination contradicted some of these concerns. Dr. Martinez, my longtime physician, testified about my excellent health and active lifestyle, but the seed of doubt about my age had been planted in Judge Morrison's mind. Emma's school performance began suffering under the stress of divided loyalties. Her teacher, Miss Rodriguez, reported declining grades and difficulty concentrating. Emma was withdrawing from classmates and appeared anxious during playground activities. The climactic blow came when Derek filed an emergency motion requesting immediate custody transfer. Pierce argued that the ongoing litigation was emotionally damaging Emma, and that my resistance to his client's reasonable requests proved I was prioritizing my own interests over the child's well-being. Your Honor, Pierce declared dramatically, this elderly woman is traumatizing a young girl by forcing her to choose between the grandmother who raised her and the father who wants to provide her with every opportunity. The longer this battle continues, the more psychological damage Emma will suffer. The motion painted me as a selfish old woman clinging to a child who deserved better opportunities. It suggested that my love for Emma had become possessive and harmful, preventing her from developing a relationship with her biological father. Sitting in that courtroom, listening to Pierce twist my devotion into something ugly and selfish, I felt the system turning against us. Emma's confusion and distress were being used as weapons to justify removing her from the only stable home she'd ever known. Derek's abandonment was forgotten, while my age became the central issue. But I had one advantage Derek didn't know about. During those long weeks of legal proceedings, I'd been conducting my own investigation into his past. What I was discovering about Derek's true character would soon expose the real reasons behind his sudden desire for custody. While Derek's lawyers painted pictures of redemption and responsibility, I spent my evenings unraveling the truth about his past decade. The private investigator I hired with my dwindling savings was Carol Brennan, a former police detective who specialized in domestic cases. Her hourly rate strained my budget, but Emma's future was worth any financial sacrifice. Carol's first discovery came through public record searches. Derek's construction company had been founded with a significant investment from Amanda's family trust. Without his wife's money, Derek would still be working for someone else's crew instead of owning his own business. His success was built entirely on Amanda's pharmaceutical fortune. More disturbing revelations emerged when Carol located Derek's first wife, Jennifer Walsh, living in Phoenix with her 14-year-old son from a previous marriage. Jennifer's story made my blood run cold as I listened to familiar patterns of abandonment and betrayal. Derek pursued me relentlessly after my husband died of cancer, Jennifer explained during our phone conversation. He was charming, attentive, and wonderful with my son Tommy. We married within 8 months of meeting. The honeymoon period lasted exactly 2 years before Derek's true character emerged. When Jennifer was diagnosed with breast cancer, Derek became distant and critical. He complained about medical bills, missed chemotherapy appointments, and began staying out late without explanation. He left 3 days after my mastectomy, Jennifer continued, her voice still carrying pain from that betrayal. Tommy woke up one morning to find Derek's clothes gone and a note on the kitchen table saying he couldn't handle the stress anymore. Derek had abandoned another sick wife and her child, establishing a clear pattern of behavior. He'd pursued women for their resources or stability, then fled when circumstances became challenging. His abandonment of Sarah and Emma wasn't an isolated tragedy, but part of a calculated pattern. Carol's investigation revealed Derek's cocaine addiction history through court records from Arizona. He'd been arrested twice for possession and completed mandatory rehabilitation programs. His drug use had contributed to his financial problems before meeting Amanda. The timeline of Derek's relationship with Amanda proved most damning. Bank records showed significant money transfers from Amanda's accounts to Derek's construction business starting 8 months before Sarah's death. He'd been planning his exit strategy while his wife fought for her life. Text messages recovered from Sarah's old phone provided devastating evidence of Derek's affair. I'd kept her phone in a drawer, unable to bring myself to cancel the service during those grief-stricken early months. Carol's technology expert retrieved messages Derek thought had been permanently deleted. The conversations between Derek and Amanda during Sarah's final illness revealed their cold calculation. They discussed timing Derek's departure to avoid suspicion while ensuring his access to Sarah's life insurance money. Amanda had coached him on legal strategies to abandon parental responsibilities while protecting his financial interests. "Once the insurance comes through, we can start fresh," Amanda had written. "The baby complicates things, but your mother-in-law will take her." Problem solved. Their callous discussion of Emma as a problem to be solved made me physically ill. These people had planned my daughter's abandonment while she was dying, treating her infant child like an unwanted burden to be discarded. Further investigation into Derek's business practices uncovered another shocking truth. He was systematically embezzling from Amanda's pharmaceutical company through inflated construction contracts and kickback schemes. Amanda's signature appeared on dozens of questionable invoices that padded Derek's profits at her company's expense. The embezzlement had started small but escalated to hundreds of thousands of dollars over the past 5 years. Derek was stealing from the woman whose money had built his business, creating a dangerous situation that required careful management to avoid exposure. Carol discovered that Amanda's business partners were beginning to question the construction contracts. An internal audit had been scheduled for the following quarter, which would certainly expose Derek's financial crimes. He needed to present a stable family image to deflect suspicion and maintain his position. Emma's increased visits revealed Derek's inappropriate conversations with her about our relationship. He was coaching her to express dissatisfaction with our modest lifestyle, while emphasizing the advantages of living with him and Amanda. His psychological manipulation of a 10-year-old child showed the depths of his desperation. "Daddy says Mama's too old to take care of me properly," Emma reported after one weekend visit. "He says I need younger parents who can keep up with my energy and give me the things I deserve." Derek was systematically poisoning Emma's relationship with me, using her natural childhood desires for material things to create artificial dissatisfaction with our loving but modest home. His manipulation targeted her developing sense of self-worth by linking love with expensive possessions. The most disturbing discovery came through hospital records that Carol accessed through her law enforcement connections. Derek had been absent during 90% of Sarah's medical appointments and treatments. While I spent countless hours holding my daughter's hand through chemotherapy sessions, her husband was meeting with divorce attorneys and planning his future with Amanda. Derek's pattern of abandonment extended beyond his wives to include financial obligations. Court records from Phoenix showed multiple judgments against him for unpaid medical bills from Jennifer's cancer treatment. He'd refused to honor insurance copayments and deductibles, leaving his sick wife to handle mounting debt alone. Even more revealing was Derek's psychological profile from his Arizona addiction treatment. Therapists had documented his narcissistic tendencies and inability to maintain relationships under stress. He showed no genuine empathy for others' suffering and viewed relationships as transactions based on personal benefit. Emma's anxiety levels increased dramatically during this period. She began experiencing nightmares about choosing between Derek and me, waking up, crying, and clinging to me for reassurance. Her school counselor recommended reducing the visitation stress, but Derek's lawyers blocked any schedule modifications. Derek's visits became increasingly aggressive as he sensed my growing knowledge of his past. He began making veiled threats about my age and health, suggesting that fighting his custody petition was selfish and ultimately futile. "Face reality, Anne-Marie," he said during one pickup session. "You're 70 years old. How much longer can you realistically care for a growing child? I'm offering Emma a future you can't provide." But Derek had made a crucial mistake in his calculations. While he'd been busy covering up his past and planning his future, I'd been gathering evidence that would expose his true character to the world. The manila envelope I carried to court that final day contained proof of crimes, betrayals, and manipulations that would destroy his carefully constructed facade. The climactic revelation came when Carol uncovered the real reason behind Derek's desperate need for respectability. Amanda had discovered his embezzlement and was preparing to divorce him unless he could prove his worthiness as a husband and stepfather. Emma's custody wasn't about paternal love. It was about Derek's financial survival. Amanda's private investigator had been gathering evidence of Derek's crimes for months. She needed proof of his character improvement to justify staying married and avoiding the scandal of prosecuting him. A loving father fighting for his daughter would provide the perfect cover story for their troubled marriage. But Amanda was about to learn that her husband's betrayals extended far beyond financial crime. The evidence I'd gathered would soon expose Derek's true nature to everyone, including the wife he'd been manipulating from the beginning. As our final court date approached, Derek's desperation became increasingly apparent. His weekend visits with Emma intensified in emotional manipulation, as he sensed his carefully constructed facade beginning to crack. He began promising her increasingly extravagant gifts and experiences, trying to buy affection he'd never earned through genuine care. "Princess," he'd tell Emma during their visits, "when you come live with Daddy and Amanda, we'll travel to Disney World every year. You'll have your own horse and take riding lessons at the country club. Wouldn't that be more fun than staying in that little house with your grandmother?" Emma would return from these visits more conflicted than ever. The promises sounded wonderful to a 10-year-old mind, but her heart remained firmly attached to our quiet life together. She'd curl up beside me on the couch afterward, seeking comfort from the emotional whiplash Derek's manipulation created. Derek's business associates were growing suspicious about the pharmaceutical contracts that had funded his success. Amanda's company had scheduled a comprehensive audit for the week after our custody hearing, creating a ticking time bomb that explained Derek's frantic timeline. Carol's investigation had uncovered the web of financial crimes that made Derek's need for respectability urgent. He'd been stealing from Amanda's company for years, through inflated construction invoices and phantom employee payments. The money had funded his lavish lifestyle and business expansion, but the scheme was unraveling rapidly. During one particularly revealing conversation, Carol managed to record Derek discussing his situation with a business partner. His words exposed the calculated nature of his custody pursuit. "I need this kid to make me look stable. Amanda's getting suspicious, and her family's asking questions about the contracts. A devoted father fighting for his daughter sounds better than a guy getting divorced for embezzlement." The recording proved that Emma was nothing more than a prop in Derek's performance of respectability. He needed the appearance of a loving family to deflect attention from his crimes and maintain his marriage to his wealthy wife. Amanda began reaching out to me privately during this period, initially through veiled conversations during Emma's pickup times. Her perfectly composed exterior had started showing cracks as she discovered more about Derek's past. The woman who'd initially seemed cold and calculating was revealing genuine concern about the situation. "I've been doing my own research about Derek's history," Amanda confided during a phone call that surprised me completely. "Some things don't add up about his story. He told me you'd refused to let him see Emma all these years. But I'm starting to question that narrative." Her admission opened the door to difficult conversations about Derek's true character. Amanda had married him believing his story about being a grief-stricken widower who'd made mistakes but learned from them. She was slowly discovering the extent of his deception and manipulation. The business audit had uncovered irregularities that pointed directly toward Derek's embezzlement scheme. Amanda's position as a pharmaceutical executive made her potentially liable for the financial crimes committed using her company's resources. Her marriage to Derek had become a professional and legal nightmare. Emma's emotional state deteriorated further as Derek's promises became more elaborate and his criticism of our life more harsh. He began suggesting that my age made me an inadequate guardian who couldn't provide proper supervision or opportunities. "Your grandmother's getting old, sweetheart," he'd tell Emma during visits. "She might get sick or confused, like old people do. Amanda and I are young and healthy. We can take care of you for many years." These conversations terrified Emma, who'd already lost her mother and couldn't bear the thought of losing me too. She began checking on me at night, worried that Derek's predictions about my health might come true. The psychological damage to a child who'd already experienced abandonment was profound and cruel. Derek's lawyer continued filing motions designed to accelerate the custody transfer. They argued that Emma's distress proved the current arrangement was harmful and that my advanced age created an unstable environment for a growing child. Linda worked tirelessly to counter these arguments, but Derek's legal team had significant advantages in resources and experience. They painted every aspect of our modest life as inadequate, while emphasizing the opportunities Derek could provide. The most devastating manipulation came when Derek convinced Emma to write a letter to the judge expressing her wishes. During a weekend visit, he coached her to focus on material desires rather than emotional bonds. The resulting letter broke my heart, with its childish handwriting describing dreams of horses, private schools, and exotic vacations. But Emma's genuine feelings emerged in her conversations with Dr. Hendricks during their final therapy session. The child psychologist's report would be crucial to Judge Morrison's decision, and Emma's honest responses revealed the depth of her attachment to me, despite Derek's manipulation. "I love my daddy because he's my daddy," Emma told Dr. Hendricks, "but Mama's my real family. She takes care of me when I'm sick and helps me with homework every night. Daddy promises me things, but Mama actually does things for me." Derek's increasingly erratic behavior suggested the pressure was getting to him. His perfect composure began slipping during court appearances, as he realized his manipulation tactics weren't working as effectively as planned. The facade of respectability he'd carefully constructed was starting to crumble under scrutiny. Carol's final investigation revealed the most shocking truth of all. Amanda hadn't just discovered Derek's embezzlement. She was actively gathering evidence to prosecute him. Her apparent support for his custody battle was actually a strategy to keep him close while building her legal case. The night before our final hearing, Amanda made a decision that would change everything. She called me at home, her voice shaking with emotion as she prepared to reveal information that would destroy her own marriage but protect Emma from a dangerous man. "I need to tell you something about Derek," she said quietly. "Something that will end this custody battle once and for all. I've been gathering evidence for months, and I can't let him hurt that little girl the way he's hurt everyone else." Her revelation would expose Derek's crimes to the court and reveal the real motivation behind his sudden desire for custody. Amanda had discovered that her husband was a predator who used relationships as tools for financial gain, and she was finally ready to stop enabling his destructive behavior. The alliance forming between Amanda and me represented Derek's worst nightmare. The two women he'd manipulated and betrayed were joining forces to expose his true nature and protect Emma from his calculated exploitation. As I prepared for the final court battle, I knew that Derek's carefully constructed world was about to collapse around him. The evidence in my manila envelope would reveal a pattern of abandonment, betrayal, and criminal behavior that would ensure Emma's safety and security in our loving home. The courtroom was packed for our final hearing, with Derek's supporters filling one side, while my small group of neighbors and friends occupied a few rows behind Linda and me. Derek strutted in wearing his most expensive suit, radiating confidence that his superior resources and legal team would secure victory. He had no idea that his world was about to collapse completely. Judge Morrison called the session to order, and Jonathan Pierce stood to present Derek's final arguments for custody. He painted an eloquent picture of a reformed man, ready to provide his daughter with every advantage money could buy. The speech was polished, convincing, and completely demolished by what followed. Linda surprised everyone by requesting permission to present new evidence that had recently come to light. She opened my manila envelope and began distributing copies of documents to the judge, Pierce, and Derek. I watched Derek's face drain of color as he recognized the bank statements, text messages, and police reports that exposed his true character. Emma's private testimony to Judge Morrison had taken place the previous week in the judge's chambers. Away from Derek's intimidating presence, she'd spoken honestly about feeling safe only with me and her fear of living with virtual strangers who promised her material things but couldn't provide emotional security. Emma expressed clear preferences for maintaining her current living situation, Judge Morrison noted while reviewing the child psychologist's report. Despite the material advantages offered by her father, she demonstrates strong attachment to her grandmother and anxiety about changing her stable environment. Amanda's surprise appearance as a witness sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Derek's own wife walked to the witness stand with a thick folder of documents that would systematically destroy every lie he'd told about their marriage and his character. "Your Honor," Amanda began, her voice steady, despite the magnitude of her betrayal of Derek. I need to share information about my husband's true nature that directly impacts Emma's safety and well-being. She testified about discovering Derek's embezzlement from her pharmaceutical company, providing financial records that showed systematic theft over several years. Her position as an executive made her potentially liable for these crimes, but she was willing to risk her career to protect Emma. The text messages between Derek and Amanda during Sarah's final illness were read aloud in court, revealing their cold calculation in planning his abandonment of Emma. The callous discussions of treating a dying woman's baby as a problem to be solved shocked even experienced court personnel. Derek's marriage certificate to Amanda, dated just 6 months after Sarah's death, proved his abandonment of Emma had been premeditated rather than an emotional breakdown. He'd been planning his new life while his wife fought cancer, securing his future with a wealthy woman before discarding his inconvenient daughter. Jennifer Walsh appeared via video conference from Phoenix to testify about Derek's pattern of abandoning sick wives and their children. Her testimony established clear evidence of repeated behavior that demonstrated Derek's inability to maintain relationships under stress. "He left my son Tommy and me when I needed him most," Jennifer said, her voice carrying across the courtroom. "Tommy still has nightmares about Derek promising to be his stepfather, then disappearing when my cancer treatment became expensive and difficult." Dr. Hendrick's psychological evaluation painted Derek as a narcissist incapable of genuine empathy or long-term commitment. Her professional assessment concluded that his sudden interest in Emma was motivated by self-interest rather than paternal love. The medical records showing Derek's absence during 90% of Sarah's cancer treatments were presented as evidence of his inability to support family members during crisis. "While I had held my dying daughter's hand through countless chemotherapy sessions, her husband was meeting with lawyers and planning his escape." Carol Brennan took the stand to present evidence of Derek's cocaine addiction and financial crimes. Her investigation had uncovered a pattern of fraud, embezzlement, and abandonment that painted Derek as a dangerous predator rather than a reformed father. The recorded conversation where Derek admitted needing Emma to make him look stable was played for the entire courtroom. His own words exposed the calculated nature of his custody pursuit, revealing that Emma was nothing more than a prop in his performance of respectability. Derek's complete breakdown on the witness stand removed any remaining doubt about his character. When confronted with overwhelming evidence of his crimes and betrayals, he lashed out at everyone involved, including Emma herself. "She's just a burden anyway," Derek shouted, his carefully constructed facade finally cracking. "I never wanted kids in the first place. Sarah trapped me with her pregnancy. And now you're all trying to trap me with her brat." His venomous words about Emma, spoken in open court, sealed his fate completely. Judge Morrison's expression shifted from professional neutrality to outright disgust as Derek revealed his true feelings about the daughter he claimed to love. Pierce attempted damage control, but Derek's emotional meltdown had destroyed any sympathy the court might have maintained. His client's mask had slipped completely, revealing the selfish, manipulative man beneath the polished exterior. Judge Morrison's ruling was swift and decisive. Mr. Williamson has demonstrated through his own testimony and documented behavior that he poses a significant risk to Emma's emotional and physical well-being. His pattern of abandonment, financial crimes, and emotional manipulation disqualifies him from custody. All of Derek's parental rights were terminated permanently, ensuring he could never again use Emma as a tool for his schemes. Judge Morrison also ordered him to pay child support retroactively for the 10 years he'd abandoned his responsibilities, though I doubted he'd have money left after facing criminal prosecution. As Derek left the courthouse in handcuffs, arrested for embezzlement and fraud based on Amanda's evidence, he screamed threats and accusations at everyone who'd testified against him. The man who'd entered court confident of victory was leaving as a convicted criminal whose carefully constructed life lay in ruins. Emma was waiting at school when I arrived to pick her up, unaware that her future had been secured forever. Her relief when I explained that Derek would never bother us again was profound and immediate. The anxiety that had plagued her for months disappeared as she realized our family was safe. 6 months later, our lives had returned to peaceful normalcy with added security we'd never expected. Amanda had divorced Derek and faced her own legal consequences for the embezzlement scheme. but she'd maintained contact with us to support Emma's education. "I want to fund Emma's college education," Amanda explained during one of our occasional visits. "It's the least I can do to make amends for bringing that monster into your lives." Emma was thriving in 6th grade, her grades back to their previous excellence, and her artwork once again decorating our refrigerator. The trauma of Derek's manipulation was fading as she rediscovered the security of our stable, loving relationship. Derek was serving a 5-year sentence for embezzlement and fraud. Prison reports indicated he was already planning appeals and blaming everyone else for his circumstances. Some people never learn from their mistakes, but at least he could no longer hurt Emma or any other innocent children. Our quiet Sunday mornings had become precious again. Emma would curl up beside me on the couch with her latest library book while I worked on the crossword puzzle. The simple contentment we'd built together had survived Derek's assault and emerged stronger than ever. The life lesson from our ordeal became crystal clear through those difficult months. Sometimes the family we choose through love is stronger than the family we're born into. Real parenthood isn't about biology or material advantages. It's about showing up every day, staying committed through difficulties, and putting a child's needs before your own ambitions. Emma had learned that love isn't measured by expensive gifts or grand promises, but by consistency, sacrifice, and genuine care. She'd seen firsthand how people can manipulate others through false affection while witnessing authentic love that endures through any challenge. The greatest victory wasn't defeating Derek in court, but protecting Emma from a man who would have damaged her spirit and corrupted her understanding of real relationships. She remained the loving, confident child I'd raised, unburdened by the dysfunction Derek represented. Our story proved that justice sometimes requires patience, courage, and the willingness to fight for what's right, even when the odds seem impossible. The manila envelope full of evidence had been important, but the real power came from the love that motivated every difficult decision and sleepless night. Standing in my kitchen that evening, watching Emma complete her homework at the same table where she'd sat as a toddler, I felt profound gratitude for the journey that brought us here. The pain and fear had been worth enduring to protect this precious child who'd given my retirement years such purpose and joy. Have you ever had to fight to protect someone you love from people who claim to care about them? How do you think you'd handle a situation where someone tried to manipulate a child's affections through material promises? I'd love to hear your thoughts about what makes a real family in the comments below. Thank you for following Emma's and my journey through this challenging time. Please like this video if our story touched your heart. Subscribe for more real-life stories about family strength and resilience, and share this with anyone who might need encouragement to fight for what's right. Remember that love, when it's genuine and consistent, always finds a way to triumph over manipulation and selfishness.